Do a follow-up on the Palatine roses, show you what they look like potted up here. Not quite a week out, just a couple days later, some big differences because of our warm weather. And I'll give you an update on the pruning we did a couple weeks ago. So got the grill going and the fire going. We actually hit 70 this afternoon. So pretty mild weather, and that's one of the reasons why I like to pot these roses up rather than put them in the ground. Had I put these in the ground, they would be doing the same thing. And what I mean by that, I'm going to try to focus it. They are pushing out. So where the bud eyes are, they are pushing out pretty nicely and growing. You can't stop Mother Nature. If I would keep this in the refrigerator or had Palatine ship them to me into the spring, that would prevent this. But I wanted to get them as fresh as possible from the field. And they are usually harvested in October. So we're already a month later, month and a half, because of some issues they had with shipping and so forth like that. So I want to get them as fresh as possible, but you can see all the bud eyes are pushing out. If I had these in the ground, they would be doing the same thing. Then if we got some cold weather, I couldn't do anything about it. Maybe cover them up, but since they're in pots, I can easily move those inside if needed. So we did have a morning where we dropped to 25 degrees last week, and I just decided to bring those in. If we're near freezing, mid-30s, kind of cool weather, I'll leave them alone and try to hold back the growth as much as possible. You can tell the roses are shorter than they were. Obviously we did some pruning, some light pruning. We'll do a heavier prune, or wouldn't even call it a heavy prune, just take it down a little bit more as we head into the springtime. Usually for us, sometime late February into March. One thing I wanted to show you, one thing I'll do at the end of the winter when I am doing pruning and I know what type of bush I'm going to have in terms of the length. I showed you that some of them have fallen over. This is the second time Mr. Lincoln fell over. Once was Hurricane Florence, the other time was Dorian. So back-to-back years it's fallen over. And I don't know if you can tell this, but see how these canes are pointed out this way. So before I did some pruning, almost 3/4 of the path was covered with roses, the canes, and I just let them be. And I'll do some light pruning again in the springtime, but you can see what happens eventually. Canes want to go straight up toward the sun, so it will correct itself. Will the bud union be knocked over? Yes. But rather than disturb the root system, I just kind of let it be. You can see that huge fat cane coming out of there is going straight. So I'll just keep trimming them from growing in the garden, kind of just straight down, and then eventually these canes will go straight up toward the sky. And you can see that's happening already with that one there in particular. Really nice big cane. And I noticed there's some, look at these scratches on the side of this cane here. This is why any roses that you have that are crossing each other or nearby, they are going to injure the other canes. So thin out your bushes, especially as we get into spring. I'll do a little heavier thinning out, but that will really keep them from injuring the other roses around them. It seems like a lot. It seems like, you're taking a lot away from the bush, but they're gonna fill back in anyway. So it's good to clean them up for disease, and then also, keeping them from injuring the other ones. One thing I wanted to point out, but I don't see too much, since we had some cold mornings, I don't see any new growth, but they're still, despite pruning or not pruning, I'm still gonna get growth here in the wintertime. I saw one of the comments from somebody that's just going to die anyway, and that's true. So I'm not overly concerned. I remember last February we leafed out. I think it was early February, and of course a lot of this small growth will die back. I mean, that's a short little cane there, and that's when in the wintertime I'll come in here and I'll prune down, get rid of any smaller growth or anything that's died back. But for you northerners, isn't that amazing? I know you've had some mild spells as well, but to have new growth in mid-December with the low sun angle shows how mild we've been, but also just how we don't fully go dormant here in the south. I don't know if you saw this on a prior video, but we did some pine straw mulch in this garden. It's looking really good. And the climbing rose, I did do some light pruning. I didn't want to do too much because I want this thing to cover that up. But again, pruning will stimulate a healthier plant and growth. So this should really take off come springtime. Comment below if you have any advice for me on what to do about this. It's like a PVC, very, very similar, not PVC, but very similar to my neighbor's vinyl fence. So it shouldn't have to be maintained, stained, it shouldn't rot, but it's leaning quite a bit. And originally we had some rebar in there to kind of push it correctly. And I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but the rose is definitely kind of pulling it down a little bit. So I'm gonna have to do some type of bracing to get that standing up. Probably try to do that this winter since the rose is not that big right now. So any advice on getting that to stand straight, I appreciate it. Just put that down in the comments section. In the back, the blueberries are doing well. It's interesting, these two blueberries on the right, it's hard to see with the smoke from the fire, are doing the best. They were 3-gallon containers and that I got in the midsummer. These two here have always seemed to struggle a little bit. They were in a 3-gallon pot, but I think I've mentioned it in prior videos. When I got the root ball out, it was much smaller. So they're going to survive. I mean, they're doing well. This one doesn't have as many leaves, but it has a lot of new growth on it. So it's just a lesson for you. If you get anything, you know, in a plant, obviously the more mature it is, the quicker it's going to grow and the quicker it's going to establish. So just kind of remember that, you know, not only with the roses, but other types of plants. And just finishing our tour, again, encore azaleas on the end. And then we've got a black diamond crepe myrtle in the middle. So that's it. Pretty short and sweet video update. Here's some new growth again on some of the roses, just showing how mild it has been. This purple new growth, can see it, especially on some of these roses toward the back fence. They get a tremendous amount of sunshine. This is the own root Eddie Edwards, and that's all new growth right there. Not much I can do. I'll trim up that away. Whatever dies in the wintertime, we'll clean that up in the spring. But the rose beds are looking really, really good. We got that pre-emergent down, did some weeding, so we shouldn't have any weed issues over the wintertime. And that's good to have a nice start for the winter, or the spring. I should note that as I say that, I do still see a few weeds I either missed or have popped up. I will try to shoot a little teensy bit of Roundup on those. Since the bushes have been pruned and I have plenty of space in between the bushes, I'm not as worried about getting it on the roses themselves. Hope everyone's doing well. We're gonna try to grill out tonight. It's 70, like I said, and it's funny, we put this fire pit in last spring and it was really starting to get warm down here. So we haven't used it too much this summer, but now, you know, as we drop back in the 50s and 60s this evening, it looks like a good night to do a fire. And it looks like I need to stoke the fire a little bit. So I'm gonna wrap up this video. Hope all is well, and appreciate any of the comments and new subscribers as always.